Before I wrap this up, we're just about at an hour, is the topic of animal rights and animal consciousness. And I'm probably going to do a more in-depth podcast specifically on this, but I just wanted to get the topic started and get your opinions on what you think about it. I wrote about it in the book in chapter 8 maybe, or 7 or 6 or something like that, one of those numbers. Somewhere in there you'll find a chapter on animal consciousness, plant consciousness, and earth consciousness, and whether or not these beings, these creatures, these individuals have rights, and what are rights in general. And I got some new thoughts on that I want to add to the book soon, or maybe do a new essay. I was listening to a podcast from Tom Woods. You can go to YouTube, search Tom Woods Show /animal consciousness or something like that. You'll find it. And it's a conversation he did with the professor Gary Chartier, and they're discussing what are rights, first of all. So like the first half of the podcast discusses that, and that's an important conversation because I feel like people use these words and people say, water is a human right, or what is human right in general, and where do those rights come from, and how do you, there's some interesting topics and conversations to dissect that idea of what rights are in general. And you have to understand what rights are before you can say that people deserve them or that we have them. If you don't know what a right is, then how can you say you have it, and how can you say you're fighting for it if you can't define what it is? So very important to understand what you mean when you talk about certain things. And then from that topic, they go into, okay, well, can animals have rights? And this is a topic that I've run into quite a bit for somebody who really cares about animals and doesn't eat them and just cares about sentient life in general, is some people think that because animals can't make, or they believe animals can't make rational decisions because they're only instinctual, or they're going off of they're just going off of their instincts, that they don't have the ability to process complex decisions, then they don't have the ability to defend themselves, and they don't have the ability to, they just don't have rights. They're just, their property basically is the idea that you own animals. And this same type of person would probably say that you own your children, and I'm not really so sure if I believe in that concept either, that we own our children. I think that we're, the guardians were here, we brought them into this world, and so we protect them, but I don't think that we necessarily own them. But I don't think that the state owns them either. I don't think the community owns them, because that gets into some really scary ass ideas too. So it's it's some complex stuff here. But one of the thoughts that they left me with that I really felt like, okay, this is what I was trying to say in the book, and I didn't go deep enough in the book, but I definitely am going to kind of flesh out this idea deeper. But they were talking about, well, maybe you could, the same way that in society, mentally handicapped individuals, for example, they're human beings, and they are seen as worthy of having rights, right? Just because somebody's mentally handicapped, or physically handicapped, you can't just go beat the shit out of them. You can't just steal all their stuff, whatever. You have to treat them like a person, like you would anybody else. You don't treat them like some people treat animals. You don't abuse them and things like that. So they were making the argument then that maybe you could be an agent or a representative of an animal, and that this animal could be viewed as somebody who is on level with a mentally handicapped individual. That's somebody that is deserving of rights but can't necessarily communicate for themselves, or at least not in the way that we recognize, and can't speak up for themselves. So you can act as an agent to defend that animal. I thought that was a really interesting idea. And then also, even further than that, I feel like some people might make the claim and feel justified in making the claim that animals are, that we're basically, they're non-human animals, and we are human animals. We're all still animals. That's one thing that people forget about as well, is that this idea that we're supposed to conquer or dominate nature, that we're beyond nature, but really people forget that we are a part of nature. We're an extension of nature. We can't escape that. So even though we're able to have this discussion and get into these complex ideas, it doesn't mean that we're still not animals. So being animals coexisting with other non-human animals, somebody might be able to say, somebody might make the argument, I might make the argument, that if I see you abusing an animal, that is a member of my family, and so then I have a right to self-defense of a member of my family, and so then if needed, I could use violence to defend that animal against somebody who is hurting them. And somebody might say, hey, what the hell are you doing? You're interfering on my rights to abuse my property. But I guess that's where it gets complex, because I don't think that an animal is your property. But yeah, I'm just rambling now. Those are my thoughts on animal rights, animal consciousness. What are your thoughts? check out the podcast, Tom Woods Show, Animal Rights, Gary Chartier. I'm sure you'll enjoy the conversation, and then come back and leave some comments here. And like I said, we'll probably do a bigger discussion on that later, or another essay, because I think it's something that plenty of American libertarian anarcho-capitalist individuals don't necessarily take their thought that far. They're really stuck on the economics or just the political philosophy of it, and don't want to necessarily consider the other issues that apply, and that's what the idea of my book, The Conscious Resistance, Reflections on Anarchy and Spirituality, was about, is trying to bring these different viewpoints together. That's all I got today. Thank you guys for listening. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, The Conscious Resistance Network. If you're watching the video, subscribe to us on YouTube. Give us a thumbs up. If you're listening on Patreon, thank you guys for supporting. And if you enjoy this, please tell your friends, share it with them. You can find me on Facebook or email me at Derrick@theconsciousresistance.com if you ever need to talk or just got some ideas you want to share. And I will be back maybe next week if I don't get too busy. As always, if you can hear this, you are the resistance. Peace.